Right now, as you're watching this video, there's a silent killer lurking in your daily routine that could steal your ability to speak, walk, or even think clearly in an instant. Every 40 seconds, someone in America suffers a stroke. And what's truly shocking is that up to 80% of these life-altering events could be prevented by simply changing 10 habits you probably do every single day. I'm going to share something with you that might save your life or the life of someone you love. The World Health Organization reports that stroke is the second leading cause of death globally, claiming over 6 million lives each year. But here's what they don't tell you in those statistics. Your morning coffee routine, the way you sit at your desk, even how you breathe during stressful moments could be setting you up for a stroke decades before you ever feel the first symptom. Your circulatory system is like a sophisticated highway network, with your heart pumping about 2,000 gallons of blood through 60,000 miles of blood vessels every single day. When that flow gets disrupted, blocked, or damaged, the consequences can be devastating. A stroke occurs when blood flow to part of your brain is interrupted, either by a clot blocking an artery or by a blood vessel bursting. Without oxygen and nutrients, brain cells begin to die within minutes, and unlike other cells in your body, brain cells don't regenerate. The American Heart Association has identified numerous risk factors for stroke, but what's fascinating is how many of them stem from seemingly innocent daily habits that gradually damage your cardiovascular system over time. These aren't dramatic, obvious dangers. They're subtle, everyday choices that accumulate their damage silently, often for years or even decades before manifesting as a stroke. Let's start with something that might surprise you, your relationship with salt. The average American consumes about 3,400 milligrams of sodium daily, which is nearly 50% more than the recommended limit of 2,300 milligrams set by the American Heart Association. But here's where it gets really concerning. Most of this excess sodium isn't coming from your salt shaker. Research published in the New England Journal of Medicine shows that over 70% of our sodium intake comes from processed and restaurant foods, many of which don't even taste particularly salty. When you consistently consume too much sodium, your body retains extra water to dilute the salt in your bloodstream. This increases your blood volume, forcing your heart to work harder and putting tremendous pressure on your arterial walls. Over time, this chronic high blood pressure, or hypertension, damages the delicate inner lining of your arteries, creating rough surfaces where cholesterol and other substances can stick and form dangerous plaques. The Framingham Heart Study, one of the longest-running cardiovascular research projects in history, has clearly demonstrated that for every 20-millimeter increase in systolic blood pressure above optimal levels, your stroke risk doubles. What makes this particularly insidious is that high blood pressure is often called the silent killer because it typically produces no symptoms until it's already caused significant damage. You could be walking around with dangerously elevated blood pressure right now and feel perfectly fine. The only way to know is to check it regularly. Yet, the Centers for Disease Control reports that nearly half of Americans with high blood pressure don't have it under control. But sodium excess is just the beginning. Let's talk about something that's probably happening in your living room right now: prolonged sitting. The human body wasn't designed for the sedentary lifestyle that modern technology has created. When you sit for extended periods, especially in the same position, blood flow in your legs slows dramatically. This sluggish circulation allows blood cells to clump together more easily, increasing the risk of dangerous clots forming in your deep leg veins, a condition called deep vein thrombosis. Research published in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that people who sit for more than 10 hours a day have an 18% higher risk of stroke compared to those who sit for less than 5 hours. But here's what's even more alarming. Even if you exercise regularly, prolonged sitting still significantly increases your stroke risk. This means that your 1-hour workout can't completely counteract the damage from 8 or 9 hours of sitting at a desk. When you're sedentary, your blood vessels lose their elasticity, and your body becomes less efficient at regulating blood sugar and blood pressure. The muscles in your legs, which normally act as pumps to help push blood back to your heart, become inactive, leading to pooling and sluggish circulation. Over months and years, this chronic state of poor circulation contributes to the development of atherosclerosis, the buildup of fatty deposits in your arteries that can eventually rupture and cause a stroke. Now, let's discuss something that affects your blood flow in ways you might never have considered: chronic stress and the breathing patterns that accompany it. When you're stressed, your body activates what's called the sympathetic nervous system, releasing hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that prepare you for fight or flight. This response is perfectly normal and healthy when it's brief and infrequent, but modern life has created a state of chronic, low-level stress that keeps these systems constantly activated. The American Psychological Association has found that chronic stress contributes to stroke risk through multiple mechanisms. First, stress hormones cause your blood vessels to constrict, reducing blood flow and increasing blood pressure. Second, chronic stress promotes inflammation throughout your body, including in your arterial walls, making them more susceptible to damage and plaque formation. Third, stress often leads to other unhealthy behaviors like overeating, smoking, drinking alcohol, or skipping exercise, all of which further increase stroke risk. But here's something most people don't realize: the way you breathe when you're stressed can independently affect your stroke risk. Shallow, rapid breathing, which is common during stressful periods, reduces the efficiency of oxygen exchange in your lungs and can lead to subtle changes in blood chemistry that promote clot formation. Studies published in the journal Hypertension have shown that people who practice slow, deep breathing techniques can significantly lower their blood pressure and improve their overall cardiovascular health. Speaking of breathing, let's talk about something that happens to millions of people every night without them even knowing it: sleep apnea. This condition causes your breathing to repeatedly stop and start during sleep, sometimes hundreds of times per night. Each time your breathing stops, your blood oxygen levels drop, and your blood pressure spikes as your body struggles to wake up enough to resume breathing. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine reports that untreated sleep apnea increases stroke risk by 2 to 4 times. The repeated episodes of low oxygen and high blood pressure throughout the night create a perfect storm for cardiovascular damage. Your arterial walls become inflamed and damaged, your heart has to work harder, and your body produces more stress hormones. Over time, this nightly assault on your cardiovascular system significantly increases your risk of both heart attack and stroke. What makes sleep apnea particularly dangerous is that many people who have it don't know it. They might feel tired during the day or have their partner complain about their snoring, but they don't realize that their cardiovascular system is under attack every single night. The Wisconsin Sleep Cohort study found that people with severe sleep apnea had a 3 times higher risk of stroke, even after accounting for other risk factors like high blood pressure and diabetes. Now, let's shift to something that might be in your hand right now: your smartphone or tablet. The modern habit of spending hours each day with your neck bent forward, looking down at screens, creates what's called tech neck or text neck. This forward head posture doesn't just cause neck pain, it can actually affect blood flow to your brain. When your head is positioned forward of your shoulders for extended periods, it puts tremendous strain on the muscles and ligaments in your neck. More importantly, it can compress the vertebral arteries that run through your cervical spine and supply blood to the back portion of your brain. Research published in the Journal of Physical Therapy Science has shown that forward head posture can reduce blood flow through these crucial arteries by up to 20%. Additionally, the hunched posture that often accompanies prolonged screen time compresses your chest cavity and reduces the efficiency of your breathing and circulation. Your heart has to work harder to pump blood through compressed blood vessels, and your overall cardiovascular efficiency decreases. While this might not cause immediate problems in young, healthy individuals, over time, it contributes to the cumulative stress on your cardiovascular system that can eventually lead to stroke. Let's talk about something that happens in kitchens and restaurants around the world every day: the consumption of trans fats and highly processed foods. Despite increased awareness about their dangers, trans fats are still present in many processed foods, and they represent one of the most direct dietary threats to your vascular health. Trans fats are created when hydrogen is added to liquid oils to make them more solid and shelf-stable. The Harvard School of Public Health has published extensive research showing that trans fats not only raise your bad LDL cholesterol, but also lower your good HDL cholesterol, a double hit that dramatically increases your risk of arterial blockages. What's particularly concerning is that trans fats promote inflammation in your arterial walls and make your blood more likely to clot inappropriately. The Nurses' Health Study, which followed over 80,000 women for 14 years, found that those who consumed the most trans fats had a 27% higher risk of stroke compared to those who consumed the least. Even small amounts of trans fats can be harmful. The researchers found that replacing just 2% of calories from trans fats with healthier fats could reduce stroke risk by significant margins. But it's not just trans fats. The overall pattern of highly processed food consumption creates a cascade of problems for your cardiovascular system. These foods are typically high in sodium, sugar, and unhealthy fats, while being low in the nutrients your blood vessels need to stay healthy. They promote inflammation, insulin resistance, and obesity, all major risk factors for stroke. Here's something that might shock you about sugar consumption and stroke risk. The average American consumes about 17 teaspoons of added sugar daily, which is more than double the recommended limit. When you eat sugar, especially in large amounts or without fiber to slow its absorption, your blood sugar spikes rapidly. Your body responds by releasing large amounts of insulin to bring blood sugar back down. Over time, this constant cycle of sugar spikes and insulin surges leads to insulin resistance, where your cells become less responsive to insulin's effects. This forces your pancreas to produce even more insulin, creating a vicious cycle. Research published in the journal Diabetes Care has shown that insulin resistance significantly increases stroke risk, even in people who don't have diabetes. High blood sugar also damages blood vessels directly through a process called glycation, where sugar molecules bind to proteins in your arterial walls, making them stiff and prone to damage. The American Diabetes Association reports that people with diabetes have a stroke risk that's 1.5 to 4 times higher than people without diabetes. And much of this increased risk comes from the chronic damage that high blood sugar inflicts on blood vessels. But here's what's really concerning. You don't have to have diabetes to experience these effects. Even blood sugar levels that are considered normal, but on the higher end of the range, can contribute to cardiovascular damage over time. Studies have shown that people with prediabetes, where blood sugar levels are elevated but not yet in the diabetic range, already have increased stroke risk. Let's discuss something that many people do to relax, but that actually puts tremendous stress on their cardiovascular system: smoking and exposure to secondhand smoke. Smoking is one of the most powerful stroke risk factors, increasing your risk by 2 to 4 times compared to non-smokers. What many people don't realize is how quickly smoking begins to damage your cardiovascular system and how many different mechanisms are involved. When you smoke, the chemicals in tobacco immediately begin affecting your blood. Carbon monoxide from cigarette smoke binds to your red blood cells more readily than oxygen does, reducing your blood's ability to carry oxygen to your brain and other organs. Nicotine causes your blood vessels to constrict, reducing blood flow and forcing your heart to work harder. The tar and other chemicals promote inflammation and damage the inner lining of your arteries. But perhaps most concerning is smoking's effect on blood clotting. Research published in the New England Journal of Medicine has shown that smoking makes your blood stickier and more likely to form dangerous clots. It increases the production of fibrinogen, a protein involved in clot formation, and makes your platelets more likely to clump together. This means that even if a smoker has the same degree of arterial narrowing as a non-smoker, they're much more likely to have a clot form that blocks the artery completely. The good news is that some of smoking's effects on stroke risk begin to reverse relatively quickly after quitting. Within just 2 weeks of quitting, circulation begins to improve and blood becomes less sticky. However, it takes several years for stroke risk to return to that of someone who never smoked, which is why it's so important to quit as soon as possible. Now, let's talk about something that affects blood flow in a way that might surprise you: dehydration. Your blood is about 90% water, and when you become dehydrated, your blood becomes thicker and more concentrated. This makes it harder for your heart to pump and increases the likelihood that blood cells will clump together and form clots. The Institute of Medicine recommends that men consume about 15.5 cups of fluid daily and women consume about 11.5 cups, but many people fall far short of these recommendations. What's particularly concerning is that by the time you feel thirsty, you're already mildly dehydrated. Older adults are especially vulnerable to dehydration because their sensation of thirst becomes less acute with age, and their kidneys become less efficient at conserving water. Research published in the journal BMC Public Health found that even mild dehydration can impair blood vessel function and reduce the ability of arteries to dilate properly. This increases blood pressure and reduces the efficiency of circulation throughout the body. In hot weather or during illness, when fluid losses are increased, the risk becomes even greater. But hydration isn't just about drinking enough water, it's also about avoiding things that promote dehydration. Excessive alcohol consumption is particularly problematic because alcohol is a diuretic, meaning it increases urine production and can lead to significant fluid losses. The American Heart Association notes that excessive alcohol consumption increases stroke risk through multiple mechanisms, including dehydration, elevated blood pressure, and irregular heart rhythms that can promote clot formation. Let's discuss something that many people experience regularly but might not recognize as a stroke risk factor: chronic inflammation from poor dental hygiene. Research has increasingly shown strong connections between oral health and cardiovascular health. When you have gum disease, bacteria from your mouth can enter your bloodstream and contribute to inflammation throughout your body, including in your arterial walls. The American Academy of Periodontology has published studies showing that people with severe gum disease have a stroke risk that's 2 to 3 times higher than people with healthy gums. The bacteria associated with gum disease can directly invade arterial walls, promoting the formation of plaques that can rupture and cause strokes. Additionally, the chronic inflammation caused by gum disease contributes to overall cardiovascular risk. What makes this particularly important is that gum disease is largely preventable through proper oral hygiene. Yet, the Centers for Disease Control reports that nearly half of American adults have some form of gum disease. The connection between oral health and stroke risk means that your daily brushing and flossing routine isn't just about keeping your teeth, it's about protecting your brain. Finally, let's talk about something that ties many of these risk factors together: the habit of ignoring early warning signs and avoiding regular medical care. Many people have what's called white coat syndrome. They avoid going to the doctor because they're afraid of what they might find out. Others simply get busy with life and put off routine checkups and screenings. This avoidance can be deadly when it comes to stroke prevention because many of the most important risk factors, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and irregular heart rhythms, often produce no symptoms in their early stages. The only way to detect and manage these conditions is through regular monitoring and medical care. The American Stroke Association emphasizes that stroke prevention is much more effective than stroke treatment. Once brain cells die from lack of oxygen, they can't be restored. While modern emergency medicine has improved outcomes for stroke patients who receive immediate treatment, prevention remains the best strategy for protecting your brain health. Regular checkups allow your healthcare provider to monitor your blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and blood sugar, and to detect problems before they become serious. They can also help you develop personalized strategies for managing your specific risk factors based on your family history, lifestyle, and overall health status. What's encouraging is that research consistently shows that lifestyle modifications can dramatically reduce stroke risk, even in people with genetic predispositions or existing risk factors. The Interstroke study, which included over 13,000 stroke patients from 22 countries, found that 10 modifiable risk factors account for about 90% of stroke risk worldwide. This means that the habits we've discussed today, your sodium intake, sitting patterns, stress management, sleep quality, posture, diet choices, smoking status, hydration levels, oral hygiene, and healthcare engagement, represent powerful tools for protecting your brain health. Small changes in each of these areas can compound over time to create significant reductions in your stroke risk. The key is to start making changes today, rather than waiting until you're older or until you develop obvious health problems. Your cardiovascular system is constantly adapting to the demands you place on it, and positive changes can begin benefiting your health immediately. Even if you've been engaging in some of these risky habits for years, your body has a remarkable ability to heal and adapt when you give it the right conditions. Remember, every choice you make throughout your day is either supporting your cardiovascular health or undermining it. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Pick 1 or 2 of these habits to focus on first, make sustainable changes, and then gradually address other areas. Your brain, your heart, and your future self will thank you for taking action today to protect the incredible gift of your health and cognitive function for years to come.